On the morning of May 14, 2002, Christiana Spence was seen leaving the Carmichael Library at 10:03 a.m. by 3 witnesses and simultaneously captured on a Shell station camera 12 miles away at 10:03 a.m. Both timestamps were correct, both locations were real, and Christiana Spence was missing. The library sat on Fair Oaks Boulevard in the eastern stretch of Sacramento County, a single-story building with terracotta roof tiles and a jacaranda tree shading the employee parking lot. The Shell station, a weathered facility off Stockton Boulevard, had installed its security system 8 weeks earlier. Order of service number SC 1847, logged by SecureWatch Systems on March 18th. Between these 2 points lay a warren of residential streets and commercial strips where the speed limit never exceeded 40, where traffic lights caught you every 4th intersection, where 12 miles meant 22 minutes minimum, even without mid-morning congestion. Christiana was 40, an administrative officer at Avrex Specialist Hospital and a fixture at the library's Tuesday morning book club. She wore her auburn hair in a neat shoulder-length cut, favored pastel blouses even in warm weather, and kept a detailed planner in her purse where she logged every appointment, every errand, every commitment. Her husband, Michael Spence, worked as a facilities manager at Sacramento Regional Medical Center. Their son, Brandon, was 17 and finishing his junior year at El Camino High School. They lived in a comfortable 2-story home on Cypress Avenue, mortgage halfway paid off, a life constructed from steady paychecks and weekend routines. If you've ever wondered how a cold case begins not with violence but with an impossibility, stay with this investigation, because what happened next would take 19 years to understand. And if stories like this fascinate you, hit that subscribe button now, because the truth behind Christiana's disappearance is more calculated and chilling than anyone in Sacramento could have imagined in 2002. Christiana had told Michael she'd be home by 1 p.m. to help Brandon prepare for his AP history exam. The book club met every Tuesday at 9:30. She never missed. Linda Martinez, the librarian, remembered Christiana checking out 2 books, The Secret Life of Bees and a John Grisham thriller, and mentioning she needed to pick up groceries at Rayleigh's on her way home. Christiana signed the checkout slip at 10:01 a.m. 2 minutes later, she pushed through the glass doors into warm May sunlight, keys already in hand. But at 10:03 a.m., a woman matching Christiana's description, same height, same pastel blouse, same auburn hair, appeared on the Shell station security feed 12 miles southeast. Pumping gas into a white Toyota Camry. Christiana drove a white 2000 Camry. The license plate was partially visible. 5F. Then glare. By 3 p.m., Michael Spence called Sacramento County Sheriff's Dispatch. Christiana hadn't come home. She wasn't answering her cell, a basic Motorola flip phone with spotty service. Her book club friends confirmed she'd left the library mid-morning. The Shell tape sat in a dusty evidence room, unwatched for another 18 days, until Deputy Rachel Chen finally pulled it during a routine canvass. And when she did, the case stopped making sense. Sacramento County Sheriff's Department assigned Deputy Rachel Chen to lead the initial investigation. A methodical woman with 9 years in missing persons and a reputation for leaving no detail unchecked. Chen knew the territory. Sprawling suburbs transitioning into light industrial zones, pockets of undeveloped land along Arcade Creek, commercial districts where anonymity came easily. A person could disappear here without drama, absorbed into the city's ordinary rhythms. The first search focused on a 15-mile radius around the library. 40 volunteers from Christiana's church, Grace Community Fellowship, combed the creek trails on May 17th, checking parking areas and storm drains. Sacramento in mid-May offered pleasant days and mild nights, lows in the 50 seconds, highs climbing toward 75. The American River ran steady with late spring runoff, its banks lined with cottonwood and valley oak. Searchers moved through the greenbelt, calling Christiana's name into the wind. Nothing. Chen requested the library security footage on May 18th. The library had one exterior camera covering the main entrance. The footage showed Christiana exiting at 10:03 a.m., walking toward the parking lot's east section where her Camry was parked beneath the jacaranda. Then the angle went dead. The tree's flowering canopy blocked the next 15 seconds. When the view cleared, the Camry was gone. Deputy Chen pulled the Shell station tape on June 1st. The timestamp glowed in the corner, 10 hours, 3 minutes, and 47 seconds. The woman stood beside a white Toyota Camry, pump nozzle in hand, face angled away from the camera. She wore a lavender blouse. Christiana's friends confirmed she'd worn lavender that morning. The woman's hair caught the light auburn, shoulder length, exactly right. But the math didn't work. Fair Oaks Boulevard to Stockton Boulevard, 11.6 miles via the most direct route. Winding way to Watt Avenue to Folsom Boulevard. Minimum time, no traffic, 19 minutes. Morning traffic added 5 to 7 minutes easily. The window between 10:03 and 10:03 was 0 minutes. "We're looking at 2 women," Chen said during the June 1st briefing, tapping the Shell station still photo. "Or someone's lying about the timeline." Linda Martinez stood by her statement. The checkout system recorded the transaction at 10:01 a.m. Christiana lingered another minute to discuss next week's selection, The Corrections, by Jonathan Franzen. Then she left. Linda watched her walk out. "It was 10:03, she said. "I glanced at the clock because I had a staff meeting at 10:30. The Shell tape, meanwhile, carried its own ironclad proof. SecureWatch had installed the system with satellite time synchronization, accurate to the second. There was no drift, no error. Chen requested Christiana's cell phone records on June 5th. The last outgoing call, May 13th, 9:17 p.m. to her son Brandon, 8 seconds. Don't forget your history notes. After that, silence. No texts. Christiana's phone plan didn't include texting. No further calls. The phone never pinged another tower. By mid-June, the search had consumed 800 volunteer hours, 3 K-9 units, and a California Highway Patrol helicopter sweep along Arcade Creek and the surrounding greenbelt. Christiana's face appeared on community bulletin boards and the Sacramento Bee's missing persons page. Michael Spence gave 4 interviews, his voice steady but hollow, hands gripping a framed photo of his wife. She wouldn't just leave, he said. She had Brandon's exam to help with. She had plans. Christiana's Camry was found on June 8th, parked behind an abandoned tire shop on Florin Road, 6 miles south of the Shell station. The doors were unlocked. The keys were in the ignition. Her purse sat on the passenger seat, wallet intact, planner untouched, cell phone missing, no signs of struggle, no blood, no fingerprints except Christiana's own. The tire shop's owner, a man named Gerald Price, told deputies he'd noticed the white Camry on the morning of May 14th, around 11:30 a.m. He'd assumed it belonged to someone catching the bus across the street. Route 68 ran every 40 minutes, stopping at Florin and Franklin. From there, a person could transfer downtown and disappear into Sacramento's transit grid. Chen processed the Camry for 3 days. Fiber analysis, trace evidence, luminol testing. Nothing. The car had been wiped clean, or whoever drove it last had been careful. The only anomaly was the mileage, 87,342 miles. Christiana's maintenance log, kept meticulously in the glove box, showed 87,315 miles as of May 10th. 27 miles in 4 days, consistent with her usual routine. Library, work, home, church. The Camry hadn't been driven far after Christiana left the library. Standard procedure in missing persons cases: interview the spouse first, the spouse hardest. Deputy Chen met Michael Spence 5 times in the first 3 weeks, each conversation longer and more pointed than the last. Michael, 44, worked as a facilities manager at Sacramento Regional Medical Center, overseeing maintenance operations across a sprawling campus. He carried a district pager, drove a hospital fleet vehicle, and kept detailed service logs of every repair order, every vendor contract, every system inspection. On May 14th, Michael had clocked in at 6:30 a.m. His assignment sheet showed a failed HVAC unit in the pediatric wing and a plumbing issue in the cafeteria kitchen. 2 supervisors confirmed seeing him throughout the morning, 7:45 a.m. in a hallway meeting, 9:30 a.m. inspecting the HVAC system, 11:15 a.m. reviewing contractor bids in his office. He ate lunch at his desk, a turkey sandwich from home, documented in a text exchange with a colleague. He clocked out at 4 p.m., drove home, and found the house empty. "I figured she got held up at Rayleigh's," Michael said. Christiana likes to compare prices, check the weekly ads. But when she didn't answer her phone by 4:30, I started worrying. She always answers. Chen pulled Michael's phone records, his bank statements, his work logs. Everything checked. No sudden cash withdrawals, no suspicious calls, no gaps in his timeline. His colleagues described him as organized, dependable, occasionally stressed by the demands of managing a hospital's infrastructure, but never volatile. The marriage, by all accounts, was stable. 18 years, no separations, no restraining orders, no history of domestic incidents. Brandon, their son, described his parents as normal, weekly family dinners, Saturday yard work, Sunday church services. They argued occasionally about small things, Michael's tendency to overcommit to work projects, Christiana's insistence on tracking every household expense, but nothing suggesting violence. "My parents were boring in the best way," Brandon told Chen during a June interview. "Mom had her routines. Dad had his job. They were solid." Still, statistics don't lie. 70% of murdered women are killed by intimate partners. Chen pressed harder. Did Christiana seem worried about anything? Money trouble? Someone bothering her? Michael shook his head. "We were fine. Mortgage halfway paid. Brandon's tuition covered by a combination of financial aid and our savings. We were fine. Any life insurance? $75,000 through my hospital benefits. She has $50,000 through AVREC. Not enough to kill for," Michael said, his voice flat. "Barely enough to bury someone." Chen thought the same thing, but didn't say it aloud. By July, the investigation had quietly shifted not away from Michael, who remained a person of interest in that careful law enforcement phrasing that means everything and nothing, but toward the edges of Christiana's life. Her job at AVREC Specialist Hospital, unremarkable. Part-time administrative work in the billing department, no conflicts with coworkers. Her book club, 9 women, ages 34 to 61, meeting every Tuesday for 4 years, discussing nothing more dangerous than character development and narrative structure. Her finances, a story of discipline. Christiana tracked every expense in her planner. Groceries, gas, Brandon's school supplies, the occasional dinner out. In April, she'd noted a $165 charge from Nordstrom Rack with a question mark beside it. Michael explained, "I bought her a spring jacket. She always wonders where the money went. No secret accounts, no unexplained deposits, no evidence of gambling, drugs, or affairs." "He's clean," Chen told her partner over coffee in late July. "Or he's the best liar I've ever met." Her partner watched Michael through the window of the sheriff's office, sitting in his truck in the parking lot, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe he's just a man whose wife disappeared, and he doesn't know what to do about it." The theory faded not because Michael was cleared. You're never fully cleared when your wife vanishes, but because the evidence offered nothing to build on. No motive, No opportunity. No forensic link. By late summer, Michael Spence was a ghost in his own life, showing up at search efforts when volunteers needed organizing, posting flyers when new batches were printed, waiting for a phone call that never came. In missing persons investigations, the cliché is irresistible. The victim led a secret life, hidden from everyone who thought they knew her. Chen had worked enough cases to know the cliché occasionally proved true: the church-going accountant with a gambling problem, the devoted mother meeting someone in motel parking lots. But Christiana Spence's life resisted drama at every turn. Her medical records, subpoenaed in June, showed routine care: annual physicals, a prescription for seasonal allergies managed with Claritin, a dental cleaning in March 2002 that came back clean, no psychiatric treatment, no medication suggesting depression or anxiety, no emergency room visits. Dr. Patricia Olson, her primary care physician for 7 years, described her as reliably healthy. Her work history at Avrec Specialist Hospital stretched back 9 years, all in the same billing department, processing insurance claims with the kind of steady competence that earned neither promotions nor complaints. Her supervisor, Janet Torres, called her the person you'd want handling complicated paperwork: thorough, never missed a deadline, never caused problems. But thoroughness, Chen learned, had a shadow side. Christiana's planner, recovered from her purse in the Camry, revealed a woman obsessed with tracking not just expenses, but time itself. Page after page. 9:15. Left house. 9:28. Arrived. Avrec. 3:05. Left work. 3:22. Home. Started laundry. 3:30. Every day. Time-stamped. Annotated. Why? Chen asked Michael. He shrugged. She liked knowing where the time went. She said days disappeared if you didn't pay attention. Brandon offered more context. Mom had this thing about being late, like pathological. If she said 1 p.m., she meant 12:58. She'd get anxious if she couldn't account for 15 minutes. It was just her way. The planner's last entry. The 14th of May, 2002. 9:30. Book club. 12. Home. 1. Help Brandon study. 3. Rayleigh's. Neat handwriting. Blue ink. The future tense of a woman who expected to complete her day. Christiana's computer, a Dell desktop in the family room, shared with Brandon, offered even less. Email history. Messages to Brandon about grocery lists. A thread with her sister in Modesto about Mother's Day plans. Forwards from Grace Community Fellowship about volunteer opportunities. Browser history. Amazon searches for gardening books. MapQuest directions to a fabric store in Roseville. The Avrec employee portal. No dating sites. No chat rooms. No encrypted files. Her cell phone, that basic Motorola, never turned up. The phone itself wasn't recovered with the Camry, suggesting either Christiana had it when she disappeared or someone took it. Records showed the last tower ping at 10:04 a.m. on May 14th near the library, then nothing. The phone either died, was destroyed, or traveled beyond tower range, unlikely in Sacramento's dense network. Chen interviewed Christiana's sister, Paula Hamilton, in late June. Paula lived in Modesto, 90 minutes south, worked as a middle school teacher, and spoke to Christiana every Sunday evening. She was content, Paula said. Not fireworks happy, but satisfied. She liked her routine. Any problems with Michael? God, no. Michael's solid. A little work-obsessed maybe, but dependable. Money issues? They were careful. Christiana ran the budget like a military operation. Coupons, store brands, all that. But they weren't desperate, just practical. Was she seeing anyone? Paula's expression hardened. You mean an affair, Christiana? She couldn't even lie about liking a casserole. No, absolutely not. Chen pressed. People keep secrets. Not Christiana. She was the opposite of secrets. She'd tell you every detail of her day if you let her. That's why the planner, the schedules, she needed everything visible, everything accounted for. It was Brandon who offered the contradiction, almost by accident, during a follow-up interview in July. Chen had asked about the weeks before Christiana disappeared, anything unusual, any changes in behavior. She was distracted, Brandon said, like she'd start a conversation and then drift off. And she kept checking her phone, which was weird because Mom hated her phone. She only used it for emergencies. When did this start? Maybe late March, early April? I didn't think much of it. Did she say why? No. I asked once, and she said she was fine. Just tired from work. But Averick's records showed Christiana hadn't worked any overtime in months. Her schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. She'd taken no sick days since December 2001. There was no reason for unusual fatigue. Jen pulled Christiana's library records. Between February and May 2002, she'd checked out 16 books. 14 were fiction, mysteries, thrillers, book club selections. 2 were different. The Gift of Fear, by Gavin DeBecker, checked out March 18th and vanished. True Stories of Missing Persons, checked out April 30th. Linda Martinez, the librarian, didn't remember Christiana requesting those titles specifically. They were on the new nonfiction shelf. Maybe she just grabbed them. Or maybe Christiana Spence, a woman who tracked every minute of her day, had started wondering how a person disappears. Sacramento in 2002 wasn't a small town, but neighborhoods function like small towns. Pockets of familiarity where people noticed when routines broke. Christiana's disappearance rippled outward from Cypress Avenue, through Grace Community Fellowship, through the Tuesday Book Club, through the Avrek Billing Department, until it reached the local news cycle and became the kind of story that made people lock their doors at night. KCRA3 ran the first segment on May 21st, Local Woman Missing After Library Visit. The anchor, a polished woman named Jennifer Walsh, delivered the story with practiced concern. Christiana's photo on screen, auburn hair, warm smile, lavender blouse, Michael standing on their porch, the sheriff's tip line number crawling across the bottom. By evening, the tip line had logged 57 calls. 54 were well-meaning, but useless. Someone thought they'd seen Christiana at a Target in Citrus Heights. Wrong woman. Someone remembered a white Camry speeding on Folsom Boulevard 2 weeks prior. No connection. Someone suggested checking the American River. Already done. 3 calls mattered. The first came from Gerald Price, the tire shop owner, who reported seeing the Camry behind his building on the morning of May 14th around 11:30 a.m. This information led to the car's recovery. The second came from a woman named Diane Foster, who'd been at the Shell station on Stockton Boulevard on May 14th around 10 a.m. She'd noticed a woman matching Christiana's description pumping gas. Acting nervous, kept looking around like she was waiting for someone or worried someone was watching. "Did you see anyone with her?" Chen asked. "No. I got my coffee and left, but she seemed off." The third call came from a man who wouldn't give his name. He'd seen the KCRA segment and wanted to report something strange. A white Toyota Camry parked near Arcade Creek on the evening of May 13th, the night before Christiana disappeared. The car had been there for about 20 minutes, then left. He couldn't see the driver, but remembered it because the car's headlights stayed on the entire time, as if someone was waiting inside. The anonymous tipster never called back. Chen traced the call to a payphone outside a 7-Eleven in Carmichael. No security cameras, no way to follow up. Grace Community Fellowship held a prayer vigil on May 26th, a Sunday evening service, attended by over 250 people. Pastor David Chen, no relation to Deputy Chen, spoke about faith in uncertain times, about trusting that Christiana was in God's hands. Michael sat in the front pew, Brandon beside him, both staring at the altar's arrangement of white roses donated by the book club. Afterward, in the fellowship hall, the congregation offered casseroles, platitudes, and theories. Christiana had been taken by a stranger. Christiana had run off to start over somewhere. Christiana had been in an accident, lying in a hospital without ID. The theories multiplied faster than evidence, each one reflecting the speaker's own anxieties more than Christiana's reality. By July, the investigation had become background noise, a case mentioned in passing during KCRA's weekly crime roundup, but no longer leading the segment. Michael returned to work, moving through hospital corridors with the same quiet efficiency, reviewing maintenance schedules and contractor invoices while his son finished summer school courses and prepared for his senior year. The book club continued meeting on Tuesdays. Christiana's chair was left symbolically empty for 4 weeks before Linda Martinez quietly filled it with a new member, a younger woman named Sarah who preferred contemporary fiction. No one protested. Life, even when interrupted by tragedy, resumes its rhythms. But in early August, a detail emerged that tightened the timeline and deepened the mystery. A clerk at Rayleigh's on Winding Way, reviewing transaction logs during an inventory audit, found a purchase from May 14, 2002. Grocery items, milk, bread, chicken breasts. Strawberries purchased at 11:47 a.m., paid with a Rayleigh's loyalty card registered to Christiana Spence. Chen requested the store's security footage. Already taped over. Rayleigh's system recycled every 30 days. She was alive at 11:47, Chen's partner said, studying the receipt. Or someone used her card. Christiana always used her loyalty card, a habit born from her budgeting obsession. She'd accumulate points, track discounts, note savings in her planner. The Camry, when processed, contained no grocery bags, no milk, no bread, no strawberries. Michael confirmed Christiana had planned to shop that morning. It was on her list. She always shopped on Tuesdays after book club. The receipt became evidence item 27B. A slip of thermal paper that proved Christiana Spence, or someone with her loyalty card, was still moving through Sacramento 2 hours after she left the library, an hour after appearing on the Shell station tape, 15 minutes after her Camry was parked behind the tire shop. Chen stood in the Rayleigh's parking lot on a warm August afternoon, watching traffic flow on Winding Way, and tried to imagine Christiana's last voluntary movements. Library to Shell, station to tire shop, to Rayleigh's? Why? What connected these locations beyond proximity, and where did she go after buying groceries? The answer, like Christiana herself, had vanished into the ordinary sprawl of Sacramento's grid, swallowed by strip malls and surface streets, and the relentless forward motion of a city that couldn't afford to stop for one missing woman. By September 2002, the case file measured 4 inches thick and contained more questions than answers. Deputy Chen submitted her final summary on September 15th, a document that read less like a conclusion and more like an admission of defeat. Subject: Christiana Spence, D.O.B., the 22nd of August 1961, remains missing. No evidence of foul play. No evidence of voluntary departure. Timeline inconsistencies, unresolved. Vehicle recovered no forensic evidence. Investigation remains open but inactive, pending new leads. Inactive. The word carried weight in law enforcement, a euphemism for "we've done what we can, and it wasn't enough." Chen moved on to other cases: a domestic shooting in Arden Arcade, a series of home invasions along Watt Avenue, the ordinary violence that kept sheriff's deputies employed and exhausted. Christiana's file went into a cabinet marked cold cases, nestled between a 2000 hit and run and a 2001 armed robbery, where the suspect was never identified. Michael Spence stopped calling the sheriff's office by October. There were no more leads to pursue, no more searches to organize. He and Brandon packed Christiana's clothes into boxes and stored them in the garage, unable to donate them, but equally unable to leave them hanging in the closet like ghosts. Brandon graduated from El Camino High School in June 2003 and enrolled at Sacramento State, majoring in criminal justice. He stopped coming home on weekends. The house on Cypress Avenue grew quieter. In November 2003, Michael filed a petition to have Christiana declared legally dead. Not because he believed she was gone, "I'll never believe that," he told the attorney, but because the mortgage company needed a decision, the insurance company needed documentation, and the legal system required paperwork even when the human heart did not. The petition was denied. California law required a 7-year waiting period for missing persons without evidence of death. 7 years. Michael would be 51 by then. Brandon would be 24. Christiana's case generated occasional interest in the years that followed. A Sacramento Bee article on the 1-year anniversary, a brief mention in a KCRA special on unsolved cases, a true crime podcast that covered the case for 20 minutes before moving on to more sensational stories. But without a body, without a suspect, without even a coherent theory, the case offered no narrative satisfaction, no closure, nothing to hold on to except the stubborn fact of absence. The Camry, processed and released, sat in the driveway for 8 months before Michael sold it to a used car dealership for $2,100. He couldn't drive it, couldn't look at it, couldn't reconcile the vehicle's mundane existence with Christiana's disappearance. Brandon graduated from Sacramento State in 2007 and took a job with the Sacramento County Public Defender's Office as an investigator. He visited twice a year Thanksgiving and Christiana's birthday, but the house felt wrong now, haunted not by supernatural presence, but by the weight of unanswered questions. In 2009, the Sheriff's Department underwent budget cuts. 4 deputies retired. 3 positions went unfilled. The cold case unit, never a formal unit, just Chen and 2 colleagues reviewing files when time allowed, effectively dissolved. The cabinet of unsolved cases remained locked, untouched, accumulating dust. But evidence doesn't forget. In the Sacramento County Evidence Room, a facility that smelled of cardboard, mildew, and industrial cleaner, Christiana's belongings sat on a wire shelf in Section D, Row 9, Box 12. Her library books, never returned, the planner with its obsessive timekeeping, a single earring found under the Camry's passenger seat, and the Shell Station security tape, logged as Item 14-A. The tape sat there for 19 years, its magnetic ribbon holding 63 seconds of recorded time, waiting for someone to watch it with different eyes, different tools, different questions. That someone was a detective named Martins Monroe, transferred to Sacramento County Sheriff's Cold Case Unit rebuilt in 2020 after a state grant who pulled Christiana Spence's file on a rainy February morning in 2021 and decided the impossible timeline was worth another look. Detective Martins Monroe had spent 21 years in law enforcement, the last 6 specializing in cold cases. He'd learned that reopening old files required 2 things: humility, acknowledging that good detectives before him had done solid work with the tools available, and persistence, the willingness to re-examine evidence that seemed exhausted. Christiana Spence's case landed on his desk because of a department-wide digitization project. Every cold case from 1,995 forward was being scanned, logged into a database, and reviewed for potential DNA opportunities or technological leads. Monroe drew Christiana's file on February 8, 2021, read Chen's summary, and immediately fixated on the Shell Station tape. The evidence room still had it. A VHS cassette labeled in faded marker, sealed in a plastic bag. Monroe signed it out, carried it to the department's AV specialist, a civilian tech named Aaron Douglas, who'd worked media conversion for 8 years, and asked for a digital transfer. "Can you enhance it?" Monroe asked. Douglas, a bearded man in his 30s, who spoke in the careful cadence of someone who'd explained technical limitations to impatient detectives too many times, shook his head. "Depends what you mean by enhance. I can clean up noise, adjust contrast, stabilize the image. But I can't invent detail that isn't there. The license plate. It's partially visible." Douglas loaded the tape into a professional-grade VHS deck, played it on a monitor. 63 seconds. A white Toyota Camry. A woman in a lavender blouse, her face angled away, the pump nozzle in her hand. The plate caught a slice of sunlight. 5F, then glare. "I can try," Douglas said. "No promises." He worked for 4 days, running the footage through software that hadn't existed in 2002. Frame interpolation, contrast enhancement, motion stabilization. The glare fought back a white bloom that obscured the remaining digits. But on the 94th frame, Douglas isolated a shadow, a depression in the reflective surface that suggested numbers. "Could be 5 feet, he said. Could be 5 FR. Could be 5 FY. Hard to say." Monroe ran all 3 possibilities through the DMV database, filtering for white Toyota Camrys registered in Sacramento County in 2002. 87 matches total. He cross-referenced Christiana's registration. 5 FJK 394. None of the 87 matches were hers. "So it wasn't her car," Monroe said aloud, standing in the cold case office, staring at the monitor. It was a breakthrough disguised as a dead end. For 19 years, the assumption had been simple. Christiana drove to the Shell station, acted nervously, then vanished. But if the Camry on the tape wasn't hers, then the timeline inverted. Christiana left the library at 10:03 a.m. Her car was driven to the Shell station at 10:03 a.m. by someone else. Christiana, meanwhile, was somewhere else entirely. Or already gone. Monroe pulled the tire shop report where Christiana's Camry was found on June 8, 2002. Gerald Price, the owner, had reported seeing a white Camry parked behind his building on the morning of May 14th around 11:30 a.m. The car had been clean, which struck him as unusual for that lot. Monroe drove to Florin Road on February 12, 2021. The tire shop was gone, demolished in 2016, replaced by a Dollar General with a paved lot. But the bus stop Price had mentioned still existed across the street, a bench and a sign marking Route 68. Monroe requested transit records from Sacramento Regional Transit, asking for Route 68 schedules from May 2002. The records were archived but recoverable. Route 68 ran every 40 minutes, stopping at Florin and Franklin at 11:14 a.m., 11:54 a.m., 12:34 p.m., and so on. If someone had driven Christiana's Camry to the tire shop by 11:30 a.m. and walked to the bus stop, they could have caught the 11:54 route and disappeared into Sacramento's public transit network. Untraceable. Monroe returned to the Shell station tape, studying the woman's movements. She pumped gas for 38 seconds, replaced the nozzle, walked out of frame, never looked at the camera, never showed her face fully. Deliberate? Or coincidence? He requested financial records from 2002 Christiana's credit cards, bank statements, already in the file. No unusual charges on May 14th. But Monroe noticed something Chen had noted and set aside. A $280 withdrawal from a Wells Fargo ATM on Stockton Boulevard at 8:47 p.m. on May 13th, the night before Christiana disappeared. Christiana's planner showed no corresponding entry. Her typical ATM withdrawals were $40 or $60, always noted, cash groceries or cash gas. But $280? Nothing. Monroe called Michael Spence in late February. Michael was 63 now, retired from the medical center, living alone in a smaller home in Carmichael. His voice sounded older, worn down by years of waiting. "The ATM withdrawal," Monroe said. "Did Christiana mention taking out cash the night before she disappeared?" Michael paused. She always kept 50 or 60 in her purse. But 280? That's a lot for her. Any idea why? No. Monroe hung up and stared at the timeline he'd been building on the whiteboard. May 13, 8:47 p.m. Christiana withdraws $280. May 14, 10:03 a.m. Christiana leaves library. May 14, 10:03 a.m. Someone else drives a Camry to Shell station. May 14, 11:30 a.m. Christiana's Camry parked behind the tire shop. May 14, 11:47 a.m. Grocery purchase at Rayleigh's using Christiana's loyalty card. Who drove the Camry? Who used the loyalty card? And where was Christiana? The answer arrived not from technology, but from a 9-year-old personnel file. In March 2021, Monroe returned to Avrec Specialist Hospital and requested access to personnel records from 2002. The billing department where Christiana had worked employed 13 people that year. 11 were still alive. Monroe interviewed them one by one, starting with Janet Torres, Christiana's former supervisor. She was reliable, Torres said, now 71, and retired in Folsom. Never caused problems, but she kept to herself. Any conflicts with coworkers? No. Christiana avoided conflict. She'd just do her work and go home. Monroe worked through the list. 9 interviews yielded nothing useful. Polite condolences, vague memories, no insights. The 10th interview, with a woman named Sharon Riley, changed everything. Riley, 54, still worked at Avrec, now in human resources. She remembered Christiana clearly. We weren't close, but we'd chat during lunch sometimes. She talked about her son a lot. About book club. Did she seem worried about anything in early 2002? Riley hesitated. There was something. I didn't think much of it at the time. What? Another coworker, Ali Majid. He'd started in January, temp position, helping with the transition to a new billing system. Young guy, maybe 24. He was friendly with Christiana. Too friendly, I thought. Meaning? He'd hover around her desk, offer to help with things she didn't need help with. Christiana was polite, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. Monroe pulled the personnel file for Ali Majid, temp worker, January 7 to the 31st of May 2002. Social Security number on file. Address listed as an apartment on Franklin Boulevard. Majid's name had never appeared in the original investigation. Monroe ran Majid's name through the system. No criminal record in 2002. But in 2005, Majid had been arrested in Reno, Nevada for identity theft and fraud, stealing credit card information from a medical billing database. He'd served 22 months at Northern Nevada Correctional Center, released in 2007. After that, the trail went cold. Monroe requested Majid's DMV records from 2002. Registered vehicle, a white 2001 Toyota Camry. License plate, 5FRT 847. 5FRT. The enhanced Shell station footage could be 5FRT. Monroe felt the case shift beneath him, pieces rearranging into a coherent pattern. Now, I want to pause here for a moment, because this is where the investigation took a turn that would shock everyone involved. If you're following along and want to see how this case finally breaks wide open after 19 years, drop a comment below with your theory about what happened. Did Ali act alone? Was this premeditated? And make sure you're subscribed, because the confession that follows is one of the most chilling you'll hear. The breakthrough. Ali Majid had access to Christiana's personal information through Avrek's billing system: social security number, address, phone number, bank details. He'd been interested in her, possibly obsessed. Christiana had withdrawn $280 on May 13th, an amount inconsistent with her usual budgeting. Why? Monroe pulled Christiana's cell phone records again, focusing on late April and early May 2002. Most calls were to Michael, Brandon, or Paula. But on April 28th, a call to an unknown number. Duration: 6 minutes. Monroe traced it. A payphone outside a Denny's on Arden Way. Christiana had called someone from a payphone, avoiding her traceable cell. Secrecy? Fear? Monroe requested Avrek security logs from May 2002. The hospital kept employee entry records, badge swipes, timestamps. Ali Majid had swiped into the building at 6 a.m. on May 14th. He'd swiped out at 9 a.m., 3 hours into his shift. Unusual. He'd called in sick the rest of the week, then returned May 20th. Monroe built a new timeline. Number 1. Majid swipes out at 9 a.m. Number 2. Drives to the library. Number 3. Intercepts Christiana as she leaves at 10:03 a.m. Number 4. Drives his matching Camry to the Shell station at 10:03 a.m. wearing similar clothing, creating confusion. Number 5. Parks her Camry behind the tire shop by 11:30 a.m. Number 6. Uses her loyalty card at Rayleigh's at 11:47 a.m. to extend the timeline. Number 7. Walks to bus stop, then disappears. But where was Christiana during all this? And why? Monroe requested Avrek's billing system audit logs from early 2002. The IT department kept backup records of system access. Between February and April 2002, Ali Majid had accessed patient files at unusual times, late nights, weekends, pulling credit card information, insurance details, addresses. He'd been conducting identity theft from inside the hospital. Monroe found something else. On May 10, 2002, Christiana had filed an internal complaint with Avrek's compliance office. The complaint, buried in archived HR records, stated, irregularities in billing system access patterns, potential data breach, requesting investigation. The complaint named no specific employee, but 4 days later, Christiana was gone. Monroe ran Ali Majid's last known address through the system. Sacramento PD had responded to a welfare check at his Franklin Boulevard apartment on May 21, 2002, 7 days after Christiana vanished. The landlord had reported abandoned property. Officers found the unit empty, cleaned out, no forwarding address. Monroe requested a warrant to reopen the cold case as a homicide investigation on March 2, 2021. The warrant was granted on March 5th. Monroe located Ali Majid on March 9th, living under an alias Ali Keller in Fernley, Nevada, working as a billing specialist at a medical supply company. Monroe, accompanied by Washoe County Sheriff's deputies, arrested Majid on March 11, 2021. 19 years to the day after Christiana withdrew $280 from the Wells Fargo ATM. Ali Majid, now 43, graying and heavyset, sat in the interrogation room at Sacramento County Sheriff's headquarters on March 13, 2021. He'd waived his right to an attorney, a decision that surprised Monroe but simplified the next 5 hours. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Majid said, his voice flat, exhausted by years of running. Monroe let the silence stretch. "She figured out what I was doing," Majid continued. "The identity theft. I'd been skimming patient data, credit card numbers, social security numbers, selling them online. Christiana noticed discrepancies in the billing logs. She confronted me on May 10th, told me she was going to report me, that she'd already filed a complaint. She gave me until Monday, May 20th, to turn myself in." "Did she?" No. I panicked. I couldn't go to jail. I'd already spent the money, debts, gambling. I thought if I could get into her accounts, take enough to disappear, I'd have time.
So you followed her? Majid nodded.
I knew her routine. Tuesday mornings, book club. I waited near the library. When she came out, I was parked next to her car. I told her I needed to talk, that I'd turn myself in, but I needed help understanding the process. She was kind. She believed me. What happened? I had a knife, just a folding knife, nothing big. I told her to drive. She did. I followed in my car. I directed her to a vacant lot off Alexander Road, near the old rail yard. Nobody around. And then, Majid's face crumpled. I told her to give me her ATM card, her PIN. She did. I thought I'd just leave her there, take her car, disappear. But she started screaming. She tried to run. Monroe's voice stayed level. What did you do? I grabbed her. She fought. The knife, I didn't mean to use it, but she wouldn't stop. Where is she? I buried her in the lot. There was construction equipment there, a backhoe. I dug a shallow grave, covered it with dirt and debris. Then I drove her car to the Shell station, wearing a wig I'd bought, a blouse similar to hers. I thought if people saw the car on camera, they'd think she was still alive. I went to Rayleigh's after, used her loyalty card to buy groceries, anything to extend the timeline. Then I tried her ATM card, but her account didn't have enough. I panicked. I ditched her car behind the tire shop, took the bus downtown, went home. I cleaned up my apartment that night and left. On March 15, 2021, Majid led detectives to the lot off Alexander Road, now overgrown with thistle and crabgrass. Cadaver dogs confirmed the location. Excavation began on March 16th. By March 19th, they'd recovered skeletal remains, degraded by years of exposure but identifiable through dental records. Christiana Spence had been 30 feet from a jogging trail, 40 yards from a homeless encampment that existed in 2002. She'd been there all along, buried in a city that had moved on without noticing. Majid was charged with first-degree murder, identity theft, and fraud. He pled guilty on July 12, 2021, and was sentenced to life without parole. Michael Spence, 63, attended the sentencing. He didn't speak. Brandon, now 36 and working as a private investigator in Sacramento, read a victim impact statement, his voice steady but quiet. My mother tracked every minute of her life because she believed time mattered. Ali Majid stole 19 years from our family. He stole my mother's future. He stole the chance to say goodbye. Majid showed no emotion. He was led away in handcuffs, back to a cell that would hold him until he died. Christiana Sullivan's remains were cremated in late July 2021. Brandon scattered half the ashes in Arcade Creek, near the greenbelt where volunteers had searched 19 years earlier. The other half he kept, placing the urn on the mantel in his own home beside a framed photo of Christiana from 2001, auburn hair, warm smile, lavender blouse, holding a book. Michael sold the Cypress Avenue house in September. Too many ghosts, he told Brandon. Too many years of waiting for a door to open that never would. He moved to a small condo in Folsom, closer to Brandon and his family, and spent his days reading, walking, existing in the slow rhythm of a man who'd learned that some questions have answers and some don't, and knowing the difference changes nothing about the grief. Grace Community Fellowship held a memorial service on August 22, 2021, Christiana's 60th birthday. Over 150 people attended. Former co-workers, book club members, neighbors who remembered Christiana as the quiet woman who always returned library books on time and kept detailed planners and lived a life so ordinary it seemed impossible someone could steal it with a knife and a shallow grave. Pastor Chen spoke briefly about faith, loss, and the incomprehensible calculus of violence. "We don't understand why," he said. "We never will. But we honor Christiana by remembering her life, not just her death." The Sacramento Bee ran a feature on the case, headlined 19 years later, Justice for Christiana Spence. The article detailed Majid's arrest, the investigation, the technological advances that made the breakthrough possible. It quoted Detective Monroe. "Cold cases aren't closed cases. Evidence waits. Families wait. Sometimes the wait is long, but the dead are never forgotten." Avrex Specialist Hospital implemented new security protocols for employee data access, though the billing system that had enabled Majid's theft was long obsolete. The changes were symbolic, a gesture toward prevention that arrived 2 decades too late. Brandon returned to the Cypress Avenue house one final time before the sale closed, walking through rooms stripped of furniture, echoes following his footsteps. He stood in the family room, where the Dell computer had sat, where his mother had checked emails and tracked expenses, and lived a life so meticulously organized that every minute was accounted for, except the last ones. He found one thing left behind: Christiana's planner, somehow missed during packing. Brandon opened it, flipped to the last page, read the final entry in his mother's handwriting. The 14th of May, 2002, 9:30. Book Club. 12. Home. 1. Help Brandon study. 3. Rayleigh's. The future tense. A life planned and interrupted. Brandon closed the planner, slipped it into his bag, and locked the door behind him. The lot off Alexander Road where Christiana was buried was eventually developed a small industrial park, a warehouse and a logistics company, and a fleet maintenance facility. No plaque, no marker. The city doesn't memorialize its losses that way. But people who know the story sometimes pause when they drive past, glancing at the ordinary stretch of pavement, imagining the woman who lay beneath it for 19 years, waiting to be found. Christiana Spence's case file, now closed, sits in the Sacramento County Archives, a reminder that justice is sometimes slow, sometimes impossible, and sometimes arrives just late enough to feel like both victory and defeat. The library on Fair Oaks Boulevard still stands. The Tuesday Book Club still meets. The jacaranda tree still shades the parking lot, its purple blooms indifferent to memory, indifferent to loss, indifferent to the woman who left through its shade one May morning and never came home. But Christiana is not forgotten. Not by Michael, who keeps her photo on his nightstand. Not by Brandon, who named his daughter Christine in her honor. Not by the investigators who refused to let her case die in a dusty evidence room. And not by you, listening to this story, carrying forward the memory of a woman whose only crime was discovering the truth and whose life mattered far more than the manner of her death. Rest in peace, Christiana Spence. Your time was stolen, but your story will not be forgotten.